Say thank you so much. That's great, Neil. No one appreciates getting everything correct on the record like me. So,
Yeah.
thank you to the arts community for indulging my very you know, non-creative side. I do really appreciate all the work that you've done, Neil, and the Delaware Arts Alliance to make sure that we can reconvene, but also kind of in a new, refreshed way with focus and drive to make sure that we continue the great work of the calls that have happened and make sure that we can, I would say, just continue to amplify and think about ways that these calls can benefit the arts community and policymakers both. So I'll just start off. I see a lot of friendly faces. Well, I'm saying all friendly faces, a lot of folks that I know well, and a lot of people that I really hope that when we can have either a convening in person or you're visiting Dover, that I get a chance to meet in person and learn more about your local initiatives as well. I will start off just a little bit about myself. I was just recently inaugurated as lieutenant governor, so I'm going to ask for a little grace for the first 100 days. But I'm really excited to be in this new role, moving over from the Senate, where I actually was a member of the Arts Caucus, led by our great friend Tizzy Lockman, and where, quite frankly, not only did I learn about the need for the types of plans that we're going to continue to talk about, but I was connected to arts in my own community. And actually, I don't know if Liana is on, but my children are now at Wilmington Children's Chorus because I was able to hear about the great programming and opportunities for little vocalists that were just in my backyard. And so I do hope that we can focus on the big picture here in these calls, but I also don't want us to forget the very personal and community nature of the work we all do and the connections that we can build from convenings like this one and like the Arts Caucus. Um, as a senator, I worked a lot in spaces of healthcare and early education in particular. I am a attorney by trade, and so did a lot of work with judiciary and corrections as well. What I know is what you know, that arts and the creative economy and creativity and the human experience travel through all of those policy experiences. And so I'm really excited to learn not just about how we can use the great plan as a core for the work we do, but also how we can talk about art therapy and behavioral health and how we can talk about early education and making sure that the arts are present in those spaces as well. And I'm sure many other topics that you'll continue to educate me about as we move forward. I want to briefly introduce my team. I have on here my Chief of Staff, Sarah Stowens, who you may see from time to time. Mark Brainerd is our Director of Policy, and he'll be that connection between potentially advisory work, policy work that we do here, and making sure we work with our partners. And Charlene Ganthier-Cine, who you all have had a pleasure to hear from, is the Director of Operations, who will make sure that we can convene. She makes the magic happen. She's also in charge, and I want everyone to remember that because I always do every day. So when I think about what we're doing here moving forward, obviously the importance of the creative economy work that you all pioneered through the Arts Caucus and the Delaware Arts Alliance has taken on has really dramatically changed the conversation about the arts in Delaware from my perspective. I'm sure many of you would agree. What we need to do, though, is make sure that plans become action. And we need to make sure that we, as advocates in the government, in the public sector, in the private sector, are coordinated on the work that we want to do so that we can shoot for the best outcome. And I see Tanetta shaking her head because all she's ever asked for is for people to coordinate the help so that we can do more better work together. So I hear you, and I want to do that work with you all. So these convenings we hope are going to be an opportunity to use the Create Plan as a North Star to guide that work. This should be an inclusive space. This should be an opt-in space. This should be a space that you tell your friends and colleagues about if they would like to, have a seat at this table. And I want to make sure that we are both highlighting what's happening on the ground every day and making sure that we are pushing that information up to leaders across the state so they can be a part of what we are hoping to see in jumpstarting, fostering, and sustaining the creative economy here in Delaware. Like I said before, I'm excited that we're partnering across our government. We've got our arts caucus that I know we're very proud of. Many of you know that we've declared March is March for the Arts in Education Month. And so I know we're going to be talking about education today. If there are other opportunities for us to collaborate, if you're on boards and commissions and you want to highlight that work, please let us know. We're hoping to be conveners in the first instance. So thank you for giving me some space to introduce myself and maybe set the tone. I'm really excited to work with you to set the path forward. That's my priority. And I will be my promise to you, my commitment to this group is that I will be here and as present as I possibly can. I do constitutionally have to preside over the Senate. So sometimes I need to do other things, but I will be here and present and making sure that I am a part of the work as much as you are. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I think it would take us the full hour for everyone to individually introduce themselves, but maybe we could utilize the chat function. If folks haven't already introduced themselves to the Lieutenant Governor and her team, could you please share your name, if you're affiliated with an art form or an organization, also helpful to know where in Delaware you are. And then once that dies down, I'll throw the agenda into the chat. Well, I'll do it now and then do it again once introductions have died down. And if you've been to one of these calls in the past, we typically organize ourselves around one common issue. And as the Lieutenant Governor said, this month is March for the Arts in Education. So we're going to be focused specifically on a topic within arts education, and that is developing stronger pathways in the arts from K-12 to career. So we're joined today by three educators who've taken time out of their classroom to sort of be our kickstarters for the conversation. Then we'll open things up for others on the call to share their own experience, and we'll go from there. Thank you, everybody, for utilizing the chat function. I will start sharing my screen with slides, and all of these materials will be shared out at the end of the call if folks didn't get them beforehand. So let's dive in and focus on today's topic. Lieutenant Governor's team had asked me to sort of do an overview of the CREATE plan briefly. I know many of you are familiar with it. So now that we've gotten through introductions, we'll work through our key topic of the month, and then we'll end with community updates and a wrap up. We've done introductions. But for those that maybe are tuning in for the first time, they saw this online, they saw this in a newsletter, they're joining the call because they're interested and they haven't heard about the CREATE plan. The CREATE plan stands for Creative Economy Enhancement and Tourism Expansion. Actually, no, switch the A and the E. I always get my verbs confused. The A is in the middle, the E is at the end. But the creative economy is intentional in that it is inclusive of any for-profit, nonprofit, individual business that celebrates cultural, artistic, and heritage-related goods, services, and activities. We are celebrating the importance of the arts, not just as good for our communities, good for our souls, good for our individuals, but also good for our state's economy, our tourism, and our efforts in placemaking and branding. At the end of a 2-year research process, we found out that there are over 18,000 jobs supported in Delaware in the creative economy with an output of $3.7 billion. For every dollar of output generated, another 60 cents is generated for other industries that are not in the creative economy. You can see the pinwheel graphic here with all of the sort of subsectors to give you a better sense of who is included on these calls or can be included in this conversation. It really runs the gamut of all of the different types of arts that you can see on the slide here, from creation to cultural heritage, education, audiovisual, books and press, design and creative services, inclusive of music recording and publishing, tourism organizations, industry support, plenty of performing arts, visual arts, and other professional and business services that support our sector. And if you're interested in learning more about the CREATE plan, we're not going to dive into the full thing today, but it's all online. I would encourage anyone to check it out on our website if they haven't already. Our goal is to focus each of these calls around a subset of recommendations and have the Arts Alliance, the Lieutenant Governor staff sort of act as liaisons between the community, creating a feedback loop between all of you and the policymakers that we work with. And so with that, this month is March for the Arts in Education. Arts Alliance, our staff, our board, we're actively talking with our elected officials about how we can support arts education. And something we keep hearing about is this topic of pathways, right? CTE pathways, career and technical education. How do we help students understand that they can have a career in the arts after they graduate? So the CREATE plan recommends improving career development opportunities for secondary education students. It also recommends additional pathways courses and associate's degrees related to the creative economy. These recommendations were born out of focus groups, survey efforts of folks in industry, of educators that helped us to discover the following findings, which may not be a surprise for all of you working in this space. But the Delaware faces challenges recruiting and retaining young professionals, particularly within the creative economy. That those young creatives lack access to formal training programs and long-term internship opportunities. And that students in secondary education and those pursuing non-college higher education degree programs require more structured pathways to view the creative economy as a viable career option. And that in the absence of that cohesive structure, we are facing sort of a brain drain from the state where young workers leave Delaware seeking professional opportunities in other states. We also found via our research that you can make a living in the arts in Delaware, and people do. And so what I've done is invited three educators to talk to us a little bit about what they're experiencing in the classroom in a K-12 setting, knowing many of the folks on this call are working for-profit and nonprofit organizations. They don't have necessarily in-classroom experience every day. And so I'd love for our conversation starters in Brianna, Tracy, and Mary to help answer some of these questions for us and really understand the state of affairs in K-12 education arts pathways. And then we'll open it up to the group to respond to these same questions. And if folks have questions about the CREATE plan findings, we can go through that too. So Brianna, why don't I bring you up to the quote unquote stage first to introduce yourself, the work that you do as it relates to this topic of developing stronger pipelines from K-12 to career in the creative economy, and kick us off.
Of course. Thank you for having me today. I'm Brianna Schetzler, and I'm a visual arts teacher at Odessa High School in the Appoquinimink School District. So at Odessa High, we have both visual and performing arts pathways where I'm able to work alongside our work-based learning specialist, Ann Terranova, to provide meaningful mentor experiences for my pathway students. So we have one-on-one counseling sessions with each of our seniors, and we're able to gauge what their interests are and what they really want out of that work-based learning experience. So it ends up being able to tailor make it to them, which is really nice for the experience. So we've had students who were interested in art entrepreneurship, who work alongside current community artists to develop art shops in our school. And it allows students to display and sell their work. And through this, they were also able to collaborate with our digital design students who are actively running and operating a print lab in our school as well. Just last week, we had a student who was interested in art therapy, and she put on a fashion show in our school where she met and worked alongside poets, musicians, fashion designers, and photographers to bring her vision to life. So her focus was on to bring awareness to the different creative outlets people use to combat mental health struggles and the benefit of art therapy as a solution for this. So currently we have two students who are focusing on futures in art education who developed interests in adapted art curriculums through past volunteer art experiences on our campus. I work alongside both of them, and we work in lesson development, so they're able to understand how to create art lesson plans per state standards, and they take it further to adapt those lessons to create a fully inclusive art experience for our younger artists who may be experiencing specific sensory needs, limitations with fine motor skills, or nonverbal communications. So these work-based learning opportunities not only give them the real life experiences, but it's allowing them to become more well-rounded. It's allowing them to become more empathetic to others and gives them those collaboration skills that they really need. So currently I have a really strong focus in my advanced classes on career readiness and creative careers. So I aim to ensure that each student of mine is aware of the possibilities in creative art fields so they're able to make educated decisions for their futures. So companies are always searching for creatives, and we need to make sure that we are providing skill building opportunities for our art students so that we can make them employable and knowledgeable about the careers available to them. So we need to be bringing their abilities and skills, which at this time, a lot of them are just realizing that they encompass to the forefront for them. So I have students who go off to major in illustration, animation, art restoration, landscape architecture, user experience design, game design, just to name a few. So we have a lot of different areas that we go off into. So we need to make sure that parents of incoming students see the value in those arts or in arts as careers as well, so that we have their full support in allowing their students to grow. And right now, I often see a lot of the CTE classes viewed in a different perspective with the backing and the funding that's provided. So we need to make sure that we're trying to flip that mindset so they see the arts as competitive, lucrative career options as well. And if we spend the time and the resources now to give support to the arts, I think we're definitely going to see a lot of return on those students coming back to the community that they started in. So thank
That's
you.
helpful, Brianna. And just to sort of underscore and understand, those pathways you've developed for art students is something your school and district have done locally.
Yes.
And
Yes. So that's
that's
something that
different than some of the sort of state accredited, state designated pathways in engineering and IT and healthcare that the state sees as areas where there will be job growth and high wage opportunities, and funding flows to those pathways for those students, but not currently for your arts pathways. Is that correct?
Exactly. So they get 509 and Perkins fundings for the CTE classes, but we don't receive that for the visual and performing arts. But our 3 high schools that we have in Appoquinimink currently have those as pathway options for students, and they are booming. They're some of our most well-rounded students that we're getting in them, because we see a lot that like to go and collaborate with the different pathways as well, but we also have a lot of students who are choosing that as a pathway option.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I appreciate you taking time out of the classroom to share that with all of us. I think that Tracy Frizzell-Jacobs, you can also sort of add to this conversation with your experience trying to develop a local pathway in your school, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the stage and introducing yourself too.
Sure. Hey, I'm Tracy. I am the theater teacher at MOT Charter High School. I am the chapter director for Delaware Thespians, which is the honor society for high school and middle school students of theater in our state and internationally. And I own Delaware Arts Conservatory, which is a visual and performing arts school in Bear. I was also a professional performer for a number of years, and I am back in Delaware working in a number of different locations besides the ones that I mentioned. In fact, I'm choreographing for Brandywiners this summer. So I think it's important that we do teach our artists that are here in Delaware that there are opportunities for them here in Delaware. As to the CTE pathway process, we are at MOT actively working on constructing a local pathway. There's a lot of issues with that because, so nationally, ACTE, the Association of CTE, recognizes the visual and performing arts as a pathway nationally, but Delaware does not. It has an arts pathway designation, but the only thing in the arts pathway designation is digital media. So all of the things that we do here, we have engineering, we have biotechnical education, we have computer science on our STEM side, but on our art side, we have dance pathways, we have visual arts pathways, theater arts pathways, marketing, we have instrumental and vocal music, all sorts of different arts pathways that these children can take. We just like Brianna was saying earlier, we do not receive federal Perkins funding for any of our arts pathways. Even though they are recognized nationally, they are not here. Part of that, I mean, and you can look around at this call, you can see that there are careers to be had in the arts. Everyone on this call has some sort of tie-in to an arts career. Delaware has the opportunity right now to be on the forefront of this push to acknowledge the value of the arts in as a career pathway in our education process. Rhode Island has already done this, and I have a lot of information on that I'm happy to share, but I think it's important that Delaware kind of be on the forefront of this push. We know that jobs in the arts can look different than jobs in other sectors, but part of the big issue that we have found in having them included in Delaware CTE pathways is that the statistics that Delaware uses to measure viability for a pathway, which includes stuff like wages and industry growth, those statistics that Delaware has been using do not actually include the arts at all. In the arts area for that, they include things like hairdressers and florists, but not performers of any kind. It's kind of a big deal that they've negated in those statistics what all of our career options are, including my own business, Delaware Arts Conservatory. I employ 18 instructors, but they, along with the performers and staff from places like the Delaware Symphony Orchestra or First State Ballet, we don't exist in the current job data that Delaware uses to prove viability in the arts in supporting a CTE arts pathway. We were told that the arts are not going to be recognized anytime really soon in visual and performing arts pathways. So what we could do is what's called a local model. The issue with that is to do it, we have to try to fit it into another existing Delaware pathway. So right now we're looking at marketing. It's going to be able to do that, what we have to do is actually retrofit our arts curriculum to be able to make that happen, to meet the marketing guidelines of CTE. So rather than teaching the actual performance-based performing art skill, we would have to then shift it to the entrepreneur side of being a performer, which is part of it, but certainly if you don't have the skill set as the performer, the entrepreneur side isn't necessarily going to help you that much. So it kind of dilutes what we're trying to do to try to fit it into some other pathway. But it would really be great if the arts could stand alone and not have to be retrofitted into another subject. Additionally, not every school has the capacity to develop their own pathway. So that is sort of a roadblock for us progressing with this. And I think as a whole, we need to understand and accept that, as Neil pointed out with his statistics earlier, the arts are not only a thriving business opportunity. As a business owner, I can say this. As an instructor, I can say that I've had students that have gone on to perform from Delaware that are currently performing on Broadway, that are currently performing on cruise ships, on national tours. They're doing major photography exhibits and working with marketing companies to develop the visuals that go with marketing. I can't express enough the fact that these students, if we can convince them to come back to Delaware, would add to our creative economy even more. And a lot of them are coming back. Some of them are coming in through theater education or music education, but we need to kind of encourage that growth. And to do that, we need to start with our high school students. We need to start giving them the understanding and give their parents the understanding that this is a viable career pathway. You can make a living at doing it. And so many of us on this call prove that.
Yeah, that's helpful, Tracy. I applaud your efforts to make sure your school can get the funding it needs, the support it needs to do the work you're doing. And thank you. I'm taking notes as you're helping us understand some of the statistic challenges that you've run into. And hopefully the data we got through the CREATE plan can help broaden the state's definition of jobs in the arts. That's helpful. So I invite our last speaker to jump in, and then Lieutenant Governor, I know you might have to hop at some point for the Senate, so feel free if at any point you have questions or comments just to jump in as well.
Thank you so much. I'm going to wait for the last speaker, and then I just had a quick comment about some of the conversation. Thank you.
Mary, I think I saw you on the call.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey there.
Hi, so my name is Mary Caligiuri. I am a K-8 vocal music educator in Southern Delaware. I'm with the Indian River School District. So my situation's a slightly different, but it's the precursor to what you've already heard. I am at an art school. We're an arts magnet school. So my students live and breathe the arts for 9 years. They develop a strong passion for it. We build this beautiful skill level. And then they have a choice to go to one of maybe 3 or 4 high schools after leaving here. And they go to high school and they lose the arts. There are pathways. There are pathways built within the high schools. However, just because there is access to them does not mean that it's possible for them to participate in them. And the problem that my students are having is that they can't fit it in the schedule. It doesn't work. And so, or they're only able to participate in one class for half a year, and they lose the momentum and they lose the consistency, and then they end up not continuing with arts. And so some of my most promising, amazing artists and vocalists and performers lose the arts, and it's disheartening. And it's not that they want to, it's that they've had no other choice. And so that's one issue, in that even if there are pathways within the schools, it does not mean that they're able to do it. And I think that one of the issues is that there's a bit of a legitimacy issue with arts education. Those who are not involved in the arts don't necessarily see the big picture and the value, and it's not a tested subject. And so unfortunately, it also becomes one of the programs that gets cut. And I will speak that right now, my district is going to referendum. And if it doesn't pass, one of the options is cutting the arts. So we're going in an opposite direction. Now, if we had something like a CTE pathway where there's additional funding and it's coming from a state level, there's state accreditation, I think there's more protections for our students. There's more protections for our arts programming that's so important to help feed this creative economy, which we know we have. Another side comment too is that there's an issue of equity. So if you don't have a Miss Friswell in your school district, if you don't have an educator who knows how to create these pathways, then those schools are going to not have the same opportunities. And we saw within this CREATE plan that there are school districts in the state, especially those who are coming from more rural areas, that aren't getting the same opportunities as the schools that are in the more urban. And so I think that that's an important point to note, that arts education should be for all our students, all our students. And some of, if we have something that is more state backed, then I think that that will help with that issue, that you don't have to depend on that one person who can help advocate for that district. And so those were some of the key points, but we want to make sure, oh, one of my other points, I did have one other point, that again, even within my district, if one of my students goes to the one school, that arts program has a lot more support financially than another school who's still in the same district, but they get significantly less support, less funding in the arts. And that's just within the same district. And that is a common thing. You see it nationally. And all of these things that we've discussed, these are national issues. We are just a microcosm of the big picture. But I think that Delaware could really be on the forefront of helping close some of those equity gaps as well for arts education.
That's helpful. Thank you so much, Mary.
I'll just pop in real quick, Neil. Thank you so much. And thank you to the speakers. I think it really highlights for me what will be a theme for the way that I approach the work. And while I did get a chance to introduce myself, I think perhaps I skipped over the philosophy, right? And it's like how we can best work together. And it's important to remember that the Lieutenant Governor's office has different tools than other folks in our state government. As opposed to the governor or the legislature. And one of the reasons why I asked Delawareans to be in this role is because I think it's so important to spend time on the problems that make everything not make sense, right? We always have big picture ideas, or we're helping people on the ground. But I want to talk about this middle area where the decisions that are being made every day in the administration of education or the administration of workforce development aren't taking into account the best practices and the pieces that you know need to happen. And so when Tracy, you're telling us about how we can track data differently to be more reflective of the work that we all want to see happen, when Mary's telling me that the funding formula is not just a statewide problem, but a district problem. These are very much the ways in which I think we can make government and make the administration make sense for individuals experiencing it. And so I just wanted to thank you for sharing that focus. And I want to make a commitment that we would like to work on the comments and the asks that are coming out of this call in a big way, but also sometimes in very specific ways that can make a big impact in the background. So thank you for having that focus.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. And I also share that commitment to sort of making sure that the challenges we're unearthing here together, we translate to our governor, our secretary of state, our, our arts and culture caucus members as well. So this is really a valuable forum for us to get to talk in a way that we don't necessarily get the chance to talk. So thank you for convening us, Lieutenant Governor. If folks have to run to another 10 o'clock meeting, they're welcome to. Otherwise, we're going to transition, I think, to a broader group conversation. You'll see I put some conversation starters here on the slide. Obviously, we all come from various arts backgrounds, not necessarily just in education. So you can feel free to speak from your experience in industry or as an artist or running a business. But would love to sort of bring others in if they have reactions to this topic that we're talking about. Again, knowing that the information that we're gaining and gathering, we're going to bring down to Arts and Culture Caucus champions like Senator Lockman to sort of understand what some solutions might be to these problems. And so I'd encourage you to use the chat and also raise your hand. And it's a large group, so we'll do as many as we can get to. No promises we'll be able to get to everybody depending on how much interest there is. But I think I saw Tanetta's hand, so why don't you start us off with your reaction, Tanetta?
I'll be quick, and I'm artist at heart in my bones, but I'm on this call, as President and CEO of Philanthropy Delaware, and one of the initiatives we are launching this year is a rural philanthropy initiative. And I never even, looking at geographic inequities and access to funding, et cetera, and trying to get my members who are the philanthropists that fund the nonprofits to, put more money in Kent and Sussex counties particularly. But I just wanted to say openly that I will add this creative economy focus to my rural philanthropy speak, if you will. We're trying to have a convening in the fall around rural philanthropy, the needs of rural communities, et cetera, and who those players are. So I'll probably call on somebody here to participate in that meeting. But just to say that I will add this as a opportunity, if you will, for the philanthropic community to, give consideration to supporting arts in those Kent and Sussex counties. And however they do it through the district. So just wanted to, say that rural arts education should be a part of our rural philanthropy focus.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I never know month to month if 80 people are going to raise their hand and want to share or no one will. So I think we're all processing, we're taking in what we've heard. If anybody has sort of answers to these questions as they contemplate them, feel free to raise your hand and share.
Looks like George has his hand up.
Oh, and is it literally his physical hand?
Yeah.
Okay, George, go ahead. Unmute. I can't find you on my screen.
Thanks, Neil, and thanks to the Lieutenant Governor. I just want to kind of reiterate a theme that I kind of promote, and this applies to the nonprofits, not necessarily to the schools. But one of the things that I've noticed over the years in my involvement with the nonprofits, and particularly, and also the arts community, is the underutilization of their boards in terms of doing advocacy with government leaders. Ultimately, we're looking for more money from different levels of government, county, state, city, federal. So I would say again, I think it's critical that you involve your boards and get them to develop an advocacy committee, to lobby their respective legislators or whoever, political leaders, to secure greater funding for the arts. That's a point I just want to, I feel is really important.
Yeah, that's helpful suggestion. Sarah, you can feel free to jump in whenever you want. Don't feel like you have to raise your hand. And then if I saw that Tina, after that, Tina had a great question in the chat. I'm sure that there are educators on the call who maybe can answer it better than me about parental advocacy for education. So maybe we go to that after Sarah.
Well, actually, that's what inspired me to raise my hand, because Neil knows, and a number of you on this call know, that I have two children who are both very engaged in arts in their schools. And my daughter was a part of the all-state choir that was held at Dover High School this past weekend. And at the start of the concert, which blew me away, the person who introduced the concert said, you know, please talk to your legislators about the importance of arts education. And I texted the lieutenant governor and I said, hey, I'm talking to my legislator about the importance of arts education. But I think there's, you know, I'm just a parent in those rooms, right? And I think there's so much that we can do as parents on this call, but also as parents in our communities, right? Take back. And I've been telling everyone I know about not only the amazing work that the students did on Saturday, but the conductors did, and the teachers did, and the parents did, giving of their time, and how that isn't necessarily the norm everywhere, right? My middle schooler gets to go to orchestra every day and gets to go to chorus every day. And my fifth grader gets to make, you know, scenery for his musical for the elementary school. And that's just not always normal for kids. So it's just really exciting to be on this call and be able to share, as a fan of yours, how much I'm excited to do this work with you all, and how much I'm excited to partner with you all.
Yeah, and Sarah, I love you saying that. And it's also interesting now how much the General Assembly has changed in the last few years. That so many of them are parents of young students, maybe in arts programs, maybe they, you know, participate in nonprofit or for-profit arts groups in their community. And I think there's an opportunity we have as a sector to better understand what those connections might be. Brianna, did you have a reaction to that?
I did. I think that a lot of times the parents are going to advocate for what they can see. And I think that that is something that, I know we have a million things to put on our plates, but as much as we can put out there what our students are doing and the things that they are accomplishing, that is what's going to get the community and parents to open up their eyes and really see what it is. I know that whenever we have art shows, whenever we have musical performances, when that community gets to come in and see how invested those students are, invested those teachers are, it goes a really long way. If you're doing things that are amazing in your classrooms, make sure that you're sending it to anyone to be able to post about that for March for the Arts. There's the Future in Arts celebration that's coming up. That's another thing that I have my students signing up for today, and it's a really great way for teachers and for parents and for anyone in the community to be able to look at what we're doing and say, oh my, there are a lot of people that are going into these careers. Look at the different careers that they're going into, and it opens up their eyes for things that, again, they didn't even know existed.
Lauren, I think I saw you on the call. Lauren Conrad, is the Future in Arts celebration something you could share with the call in terms of just their awareness?
I would love to. Hi, everybody. It's great to see you all on this call. If we've not yet had the opportunity to meet, I am Lauren Conrad. I oversee visual and performing arts for the Delaware Department of Education. And so thank you for everyone's thoughts to today's conversation, and obviously to our amazing arts educators on the call. You make magic happen every day. But the Future in the Arts celebration is an opportunity to recognize, highlight, and celebrate students in Delaware who are graduating from our public and charter schools and going on to college or career in a creative field. And so that is taking place on Tuesday evening, May 13th at the Smyrna Opera House. And so we will have a reception at 6:00 p.m. and the actual event is at 7:00. And as we get closer, students right now are sending in their forms with their tentative places they've been accepted, even if they haven't made a final decision. And as we get closer, they'll give me their final answer where they're headed for sure. And then we get to honor and celebrate them. And we are inviting our legislators and we are inviting our Secretary of Education, Cindy Martin. And anyone on this call is welcome to come and celebrate to recognize these students who are deciding to go into what we've held so dear for our whole lives. So that is that evening at the Smyrna Opera House. So hopefully you can attend. And if you have a student in high school who's thinking about it, make sure they fill out that form.
Thank you, Laura. And this is the first time we've ever done this in Delaware, and it's thanks to your sort of leadership and vision to have that sort of celebratory event. Like you do, you know, a college signing day when you commit to the track and field team or the football team. Why aren't we celebrating, you know, the arts? So I appreciate that.
Just a quick, big thank you to Jessica Ball and the division for helping to support that as well.
That's great. Are there others on the call who would like to share their experience working in sort of this space of career readiness for the arts? Happy to sort of bring others as perspectives in. Yes, Steve, welcome in. Please introduce yourself and share.
Hi, folks. I'm Steve Tagg, the chair of theater and dance at the University of Delaware and the director of the rep. And I can't speak for all of the chairs in the arts. I know Danny was on here for a little while, the director of the School of Music, but I'm very familiar with all of them. And I don't know if the associate dean is on here or not. She's also very involved, but it's very high on our list of priorities to create pathways for students to come to UD in theater, dance, visual arts, and music. And we're working on that in a variety of ways. One of the ways, at least for my department, is to create 2 new majors. So I think you know, maybe we have a new major in theater, and we're likely to have a new major in dance for the fall of 26. And we look at this, UD is not an end stop. So we're looking really to see if we can, A, get the students here, including AA students, including rural students, and including all of the underserved students, making that possible, and B, on the other end, getting them pathways out of here through internships into, as Tracy said so well, the positions that all of us hold, whether they're educators, whether they're governmental positions, whatever they are. And I am very new at this, and very new to the world of governmental arts agencies, but man, is it exciting. It's really the people that I've met, the teachers, starting with some, I can't remember what the name of it was in the spring, to calls like this are phenomenal. And I've been in Delaware for 35 years and mostly ignorant of this system. So I'm super excited and really happy to be part of it. Just a tiny part, but a growing part. And that's all I got. Thanks, y'all.
I appreciate that. Thank you. If there's no other, let me just final check for other comments or questions or reactions. And if not, I'll move us into the next portion of our agenda. What do you call this? Hang time, my teacher friends, or lag time? What do we, when I just wait for silent in the silence? There's a word for that, isn't there? Okay. We close out these calls with updates from all of you and updates from our key agency partners. So actually, why don't I call on the Division of the Arts first, even though the DAA is listed here. I know we're joined by Division Head Jessica Ball. If you could just share anything that the community should know from your division, please. And then if folks have other updates from their own organizations, they can feel free to start utilizing the chat for that now, or wait until Jessica's done talking, either one.
Thank you, Neil. I'll try to keep it brief. So our FY 2026 grant deadline was March 3rd. We got all of your applications in without any issues. We're processing them now so that they're ready to go to grant panels. I want to say thank you to all the organizations who've completed their new SMU cultural data profile. If you haven't done so yet, please complete your FY 23 report before March 19th. This is a transition into a new way for the division to collect financial data from our grantees that will be put into dashboards that are dynamic and allow us to visualize data. It's going to help us keep an eye on the financial health of the sector, and we're really excited for this shift. We are delving into a reevaluation of all of our grants. So we are starting a listening tour this spring and summer of 2025, and we encourage you all to keep a lookout for notifications and invitations from us to participate in this listening tour. We want to hear from our grantees and folks that haven't applied to us for grants. And think about ways that we can be more responsive to the needs of the sector. We are encouraging all of our grantees to register for the State Employee Charitable Campaign. It is an opportunity to get on a roster for state employees to donate to your nonprofit organizations. And I know Andy's going to put the link for that in the chat. And then finally, I wanted to say some things about the National Endowment for the Arts and what we know right now, which basically falls into 3 categories. The NEA does a special partnership grant with state agencies like ours. The NEA also makes direct grants to arts organizations. And as some of you may know, the NEA has just had a lawsuit filed against it. So I'll talk about each of those things briefly. Just so everyone's aware, we get funding from the NEA, a little under $1 million a year that we subgrant out to our organizations through this partnership grant with them. And like all federal agencies, the NEA is required to comply with executive orders. They've been in the process since January of determining how to implement executive orders that have come out of this new administration. We have not gotten any guidance or information yet around new requirements for state arts agencies. And so we're not going to speculate about what those might look like. But as soon as we have more information, we'll get that out to you. But in the meantime, I just want to reassure you that the important work of this agency continues. Our grants and services are running as usual. There's nothing to be changed right now. As a public agency, we already operate in compliance with civil rights laws. We don't exclude any communities from applying for funds. We use fair and transparent processes for everything, and we require all of our programs to be accessible. Our grant decisions are really based on factors like community responsiveness, artistic excellence, and management capacity. We don't make decisions based on politics. Delaware communities are counting on DDOA, and they're counting on the arts sector, so we're keeping our work going, and we encourage you to do the same. As far as direct grants go, the NEA did do a webinar a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure you can find the recording online. But in the last few days, a lawsuit was filed against the National Endowment for the Arts that challenges the NEA's implementation of Executive Order 14168. The lawsuit argues that prohibiting grant projects that promote gender ideology violates the First Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, and the Administrative Procedures Act. The plaintiffs we're seeking a preliminary injunction to halt the NEA's enforcement of this order. And in the meantime, the NEA has filed a response to the lawsuit that indicates that the NEA will not require compliance with that executive order while the litigation is pending. They have revised language on the agency's website, the webpage about their assurance of compliance documentation, and they've pushed back the deadline for grants for arts programs from March 24th to April 7th, so that applicants have a little bit more time to apply. So that's what we know now. As soon as we have more information about the NEA's partnership grants, we will be in touch, but ultimately, any changes to the partnership grant will really be kind of a legal compliance issue for us as a state agency. So, we don't expect that it's going to be a compliance issue for our grantees. That is about all I've got for big headlines. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Jessica. And before I share some DAA updates, I realized I missed one comment in the chat. Anthony Gray Bolden, if you're still on and still has something to share on the last topic of sort of CTE pathways, happy to invite you in if there's anything else you would add.
Thank you so much, Neil. Hello, everyone. I'm Anthony Bolden. I'm the Dean at Catholic College School of the Arts, and I'm so happy that we are all at the table just to discuss an important topic around the creative economy and specifically regarding our students' opportunities. One of the things I wanted to do is share with and echo Tracy's sentiments. I'm a part of the board of the Art School Network. It's about 128 fine and performing arts schools. And when discussing about funding, a lot of the schools are surprised that our art schools are not funded by CTE or aligned with CTE pathways. And so I just want to continue to press the issue of advocating for that, because I think it's important that we align our CTE pathways to art opportunities as well. So thank you.
Wonderful. Actually, that teased me up perfectly. I didn't even know that would relate so perfectly. But to close out my updates, we are heading to Legislative Hall on March the 27th. This is our second year now doing March for the Arts in Education Advocacy Day in the hall. It will start with an hour-long Arts and Culture Caucus meeting convened by Senator Lockman and Representative Shoup. Similar to today, we'll be featuring employers, recent graduates, and a few principals talking about this topic, helping our legislators understand the importance of gaining support for the arts. That is in person or Zoom. You can register for it. And then if you're with us in the hall, we'll be sending everyone out to have individual meetings with their legislator if you're interested in that. We have template language built into the RSVP process that you can send to your elected official and invite them to have a one-on-one meeting with you. We will give you all of the tools and talking points you need, like how to even have a 10-minute conversation with your legislator. I would encourage you to come down, participate in this day. It's a great chance to flex your civic engagement muscle. Many of the Lieutenant Governor's staff, you have backgrounds in Legislative Hall, and I know you can speak firsthand to how important it is that our elected officials hear from their constituents and that we show up. And so would encourage everyone to participate on this day if they're able to. Jordan, would you mind throwing the link in the chat, if you wouldn't mind? And then lastly, like we've done for the last 2 years, the Arts Alliance is leading an advocacy campaign to increase funding in the state arts budget by $1 million. We've been successful for the last 2 years, thanks largely to your participation. Many leaders on this call have already joined me in Dover testifying in front of the State Budget Writing Committee, the Joint Finance Committee. Because this was a gubernatorial election year, Governor Meyer will be introducing his own recommended budget in March. Usually that has already happened by now in January. So this is a unique year where the next 2 weeks really matter. And the governor is writing a new budget based on the needs of the state agencies, based on the economic forecasts that are due out in another week and a half. And so we've had about 30 advocates send an email to the governor so far. I would ask if everyone on this call participated, we'd be up to 80 emails, and in a state like Delaware, that makes a big difference. So Jordan can put the link in the chat. If you'd like to participate, ask that you take a few minutes to customize the template email that we've already developed for you. And there will be plenty of chances to talk about this when we're down in Dover together. This is funding that would go to the Division of the Arts, that goes out to schools, individual artists, nonprofit organizations, all sorts of other community-based organizations. And so thank you in advance if you're willing to participate in that. And with that, I think we've left exactly 2 minutes to wrap. Please, if there are other updates from your community, your group, let's utilize the chat for that. And Charlene, Mark, Sarah, if there's anything that the group should know from the Lieutenant Governor's office, feel free to share that as well.
Thanks so much, Neil. I will put my email in the chat. Please, everybody here, feel free to contact me, share information, share updates, whatever you would like. We are here for all of you, and we really appreciate all of your time.
Thank you.
Neil, can I ask a quick question?
Please.
And or maybe Jessica might can answer this, or Mark, but do we have a handle on how much in terms of dollars outside of this, in federal contracts, federal grants that come to the arts community? Because I know, we've been looking at that, of course, on the philanthropy side. And Dana did a survey, and it's like 229 million that at least 300 nonprofits could potentially lose. But I've been looking to see it distilled down by sector, and it just made me think, do we know how much in federal dollars, federal contracts, federal grants come to the arts community? Do we have a way to, I know OMB was trying to pull that for Delaware anyway, but in totality, but do we know or have a way to distill that down?
The Secretary of State, Tanetta, is working on a comprehensive list of all federal dollars that come to state agencies within the Department of State. I can say for the division, we get $940,000 from the NEA directly and in our partnership grant, and organizations in Delaware, arts organizations in Delaware, get an additional about $130,000 in direct grants from the NEA.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking, because of course, if those dollars don't come back, whatever sector, not the expectation, but it could be assumed that can philanthropy help offset some of that? And we just wanted to have a better handle of what that looks like because of, limited resources and how to, really help the organization still continue their programming. So thank you for that, Neil and Jessica. Yeah.
Thank you. So we will send as a follow-up email the materials from today, the link to register in the future. Hopefully, if you registered for this call, you've got all the future calls in your calendar now. But if you did not, we'll make sure that the link goes out again to all of you. And with that, I think we're wrapped. And thank you for everyone for taking time in your morning to join us. And we'll thank the Lieutenant Governor again for kicking things off and just creating this space for us to get together. And thank you to her staff for helping sort of facilitate all of this for us. All right, enjoy your day, everybody. And scene, I think we would say if we were on Tracy's musical theater class, right?